Hey everyone, welcome to today's session. We are so far familiar with the Python basics and then the fundamental concepts around Python, then familiar with all the operators and bitwise operators. We have gone through it yesterday in the session. Uh, then we are familiar with the comment line, that is single line comment, multi-line comment, and various types of variable assignment, the definitions. And today we are actually going to get started with data types. But before starting with the data types, I'm just going to cover a theoretical part that is known as Python execution flow. I have already mentioned in my previous session, when the program gets executed, we may experience three types of error. If there is something wrong with syntax, known as syntax related error or syntax error. If there is something wrong with logic, that is known as logical error. And then something wrong with like runtime exceptions will be generated. Something wrong with like data types or like anything wrong with the execution flow, we may get like runtime errors. One of the runtime error is actually divided by zero error, or you can say one function is actually looking for a string parameter. We are actually passing like a list parameter or a float or a numeric. Those are nothing but like that may generate runtime errors. And we'll go through examples to understand like now what is runtime error, what is syntax error. We are actually familiar. And logical error, let's say you are adding two numbers, the operator should be plus, but you have given a minus over there. The program is not going to fail if your input is 100 and 200 and you are expecting 300 because it's addition, supposed to be addition, but by mistake you have given like minus instead of plus sign, then the result will be like minus 100. So that is actually logical error, something wrong with your business logic. So this is a very simple example which you can actually recall as and when you want to actually understand what is logical error. Okay. So now before we proceed further, let us understand like now the Python execution flow. In the Python execution flow, so far whatever we have covered, it is actually source code. Let's say I'm writing code in my PyCharm editor. Then what is next? There is a compiler which is going to help the compile the program. Once the compiler is done with the compilation, then it will convert into a bytecode. Bytecode is, let's say for example, Windows these days are actually 64-bit, right? And then if you look at like very legacy operating systems, it was like 32-bit. But nowadays, all the operating systems mostly 64-bit, and you may actually opt like for legacy support 32 bits. Operating systems are actually still there. When I'm talking about like bytecode, it is actually going to generate a bytecode. Like if you're familiar with the concept of Java, even Java programming language, it's a platform independent code. It doesn't like let's say you are actually writing the program, then compiling it. The output is not a the output is like the output is not a executable file. It's a bytecode. So to execute the bytecode, we need a virtual machine. In case of Python, it is known as Python virtual machine. In case of Java, it is known as Java virtual machine, JVM. We call it as actual JVM. In Python, we call it as actual PVM. The PVM, what it is going to do, let's say for example, think about other day, I have actually printed the list of keywords using using like the library keyword, right? Import keywords and then keywords.kw list was actually printing the keywords, like what are the available keywords there in Python, it was printing it. So we do have we do have hundreds of modules. Let's say you want to actually write a program for data analysis and you want to use like NumPy or Panda, or you are actually going to deal with like something related to operating system functions using OS libraries or OS models, you should import it. So during the program execution, the PBM, what the PBM is actually going to do, it is going to load all the modules, whatever is actually defined using the import statements in our program. Then all the inputs, the input is, let's say we are using like an input to get the input from the user, right? So whatever the input is actually required for the program to get executed, those input will be passed to the PVM, Python virtual machine. Once everything is collected, then the PVM is actually going to proceed with the next step. That is nothing but the code will be executed. And once the code is actually executed, then you can experience three things. One is the expected output. Two is unexpected output. Three is error or exception. Okay. When I'm talking about like expected output, 10 plus 20 equals to 30, that is expected. But you have done some like logical mistakes like 10 into 20, so it is actually giving 200. That is not your expected output in this case. That is unexpected output due to some logical errors. And then there is something wrong with the syntax or something wrong with like PBM is actually going to give us like the error whatever is actually generated by PBM. It's not like syntax error, because syntax error will be detected in the compilation stage. The PBM is actually going to detect only runtime errors. So in the after the PBM, like now, if Python virtual machine loads all the input, loads all the libraries, then the proceeding with the execution, expected output will come, or unexpected output will come due to logical error, or runtime error is going to come. Let's say integer is expected, but the input is actually string. String is expected, the input is actually tuple. So in those cases, runtime error is actually going to be raised. So this is the theoretical part of Python program execution. As we are learning Python for the very first time, so you must understand how it is working. To explore further, you may look at various websites to build up your knowledge on the Python theoretical part, like not in this case, the Python program execution flow. Okay, let us proceed further. So the next step here is like on the data types. In the previous session, someone has actually asked how many data types we are having. We are having many data types. This is not a complete list. This is almost complete list. In this list, we do not have like binary data types. Okay, the binary data types like bytes. Okay, and then there are two other data types also, but we are not going to deal with in the basic Python session. So for the time being, I have not documented it here. The data types can be Boolean, and there is a keyword. You can say like bool, and ideally, whenever we want to actually convert anything to string type, we can actually use str, and that is falling under string. And numeric, we do have int, float, and complex. And in sequence, we do have three data types: list, tuple, and range. And in the mapping or maps, we do have dictionary data type. And in the set, we do have two data types, one is set and frozen set. So I'll tell you the real-time example when to use set and when to use frozen set in my set section training session. And we do have a special data type that is known as none type, or you can say none. So these are the various data types what we have in Python. We are familiar with, I've just given example of string, I've just given example of float, I've just given example of numbers, I've just given the example of like various operations and list also. We have defined a list and printed the list, tuple as well and dictionary as well. Set and frozen set, I did not cover it yet. None data type also we have gone through it. One example of none also I just given. So these are various types of data types, and in specific sections like string will be having like many examples under string section, like how to deal with a string, how to search for something within the string, that is like substring operations. If you want to actually print the range of the characters from a string, we can actually do that. If you want to actually convert the cases from lowercase to uppercase, the first character should be like in uppercase, or you want to actually trim the spaces or strip the spaces. We can actually do that stripping of characters, that is also possible. So all these operations I'm just going to tell you in the string section. Okay, similarly in the other data types like sequence and all other data types, we can actually go through it. Under sequence, we do have like a list, tuple, and range. String is also falling under sequence category too, because we can convert a string to a list. We can convert a string to, like now, for example, we do have a string and I want to actually convert it to a tuple. That is also possible. Okay. So now the next topic here we are going to learn is casting. Casting means, let's say, for example, we do have int, let's say for example number equals to 10. I want to print number. Here the output will be 10. If I print float of number, the output will be 10.0. If I print float of, let's say I am having another floating point number here, float, let's say I'm just having 12.3. Now print float. Here you can see the result should be 12.3. If you print int of float, FLT is the variable. In this case, you can get the result as 12. So in my first case, here you can see this is the number type. This type of casting is known as int to float casting. Now in this case, it's float to int casting. If you tell me I am having number, let's say for example in this case number is 10, I'm just giving like a print str of number, in this case error. Or let us see like now whether it is going to give error or it is going to return the string. But whenever you do, let's say for example str1 equals to string 1 equals to Subhas's, and if you want to convert, let's say print int of str1, it is going to give, definitely we are going to get casting error. Okay, and if we do print of float of str1, definitely you are going to get error. Okay, so now let us try it out and let us test one by one, like now what is going to happen here. Let me do one thing. One moment. New Python file and cast example. Here we go. Let me change the theme to IntelliJ so that in later point of time you can, it will be like more readable in the recorded sessions too. So now look at here. If I'm running this program, Control Shift of 10, as I'm using Python, so as I was using like now Control Shift of 10. Here you can see invalid literal int with base like 10, but the input is Subhas's, so it cannot convert like in a string 1. Now here you can see till till like 10, 10.0, 12.3, 12 and 10, it is actually working fine. But in this case, we are actually getting error. We are getting error. This is not going to throw any error, I believe. Let us see. Control Shift F10. Here you can see if it is a number, we can convert to a string, convert it to string. Let's say, how about, let's say I am having float1, fl1 equals to 12.555554. Now print str of fl1. Let us see what is going to happen here. Here you can see this is also going to work, but the vice versa is not possible. These three sections, like string to float, string to int, is not possible. To take away from here is, I'm just mentioning it here, float to int, it is possible. Int to float, possible. String to int, possible. String to float, it is also possible. But sorry, string to int, int to string, it should be like it is not possible. String to int is not possible. String to float is also not possible. It is going to throw error. If you are giving int to string, definitely possible. Float to string, definitely possible. So far we are dealing with int, string and float. So this is how the casting is actually going to work in the real time. Let us do one thing. Let us write another program to understand string to list and tuple casting. Okay. Now let us see how it is going to work. Let's say I'm having message equals to hello world. Okay, I have message equal to hello world. Now here I'm just giving print message. Here I'm just giving list one equals to, the casting here is little different. It is like list, we need to call it as list. Now list, here I can specify message. Okay, and I'm just going to print list one. Let us see like now what is going to happen here. Let's say tuple one equals to tuple up. This variable is actually message here, and print tuple one. This is a very small program. So what we are actually doing is, let me explain you. Here we have message variable which is containing hello world. As it's a string, you can actually quote it in single quotes or double quotes. Then we are printing message. Then here what we are doing is, we are actually typecasting the message string to list using the method list or the function list, and here we are printing the list. Then in this case we are using tuple, and tuple function or tuple method we are actually using here, and the variable we are passing here is actually mess, which is of type string. Now while running this program, Control Shift F10, here you can see the first one is going to give hello world as string. The list is actually enclosed in square bracket. This is how it is going to like now print. If you're familiar with array in any programming language or scripting language, this is nothing but you can say like now look alike of array. Okay, and tuple, it is actually in round brackets or parentheses. Remember guys, tuple is actually immutable, that is kind of read only, we cannot actually make any changes. But list is mutable, we can actually change any elements. And just for the time being, remember, string is immutable, tuple is immutable, list is mutable. Okay, in the sections, specific sections of list, tuple and string, we can go through the examples and understand why it is immutable, what is the meaning of immutable and mutable. Okay, so mutability and immutability, we are going to learn more about it. So this is known as casting. So we are done with the basic concepts. We know like how to define the variable, how to assign variable, how to do like various type of variable assignments, how to deal with output operations, how to deal with input operations, how to do the typecasting, how to use various type of operator. I'm talking about like the various types of operator. It could be arithmetic operator, it could be logical operator, it could be membership operator, it could be identification operator, it could be logical operators like and or and not. So any operations and comparison operators like equals to, not equals to, and then less than, greater than equals to, less than equals to, and all. We do have a concept of precedence of operators. So the operator precedence is a big topic if you don't know, like what is the operator precedence. If you're little familiar with other programming languages also, you can actually interpret the operator precedence. For example, just think about like forget about Python for the time being. If I'm specifying 12 plus 23 plus 3, then multiplication 23 divided by 5 percentage 2 plus 4.5 divided by 2 asterisk 32 floor division 2. If you want to manipulate it, you should understand which operation is going to be performed first. Like the system is actually going to look at the operator precedences. In this case, the brackets are having higher precedence than exponent. Exponent is also having like the precedence. Just after parenthesis, exponent operator is actually going to work. Let's say if I'm specifying exponent here 3 followed by 23, then this operation will be happening first. Okay, that is known as exponent. Similarly, we do have like all the operator precedences. If we go through the program over here, like now let me take you to one slide and let us understand. I'm just a precedence. So in the operator precedence, what we have is this is like the brackets are having higher precedence, then exponents, then we are having unary operators. Like let's say for example, x equal to 10, minus of x is minus 10. If x equal to minus 10, then minus of minus x is, minus of x is 10. So those operators are actually known as unary operators. Okay. Then similarly, we do have multiplication, division. This is like the next precedence. Then we are having plus and minus. We are having bitwise shift operators, left shift and right shift. Then bitwise and, then bitwise XOR, bitwise OR, then followed by all these operators. And the highlighted ones are actually little different as compared, because in other programming languages you must have actually used these operators, but is not, is identification operator, in not in is known as membership operator, and logical operators are not and not and or. Okay, so these are the operator precedences. So what is the next topic here is, the next topic here is the conditional execution or loops, okay, or the past statements. first statement, or you can say control statements, control flow statements. So now to understand it, I created a diagram. Okay, so here you can understand like now what are things we have under the flow control statements. In the flow control statements, we do have conditional statement. Again, under conditional statements, we have four types of conditional statements. One is if else, if if, then if else. Okay, we'll go through examples of each type, so don't worry about it. Then the second one is iterative statements or loops. We have while loop and for loop. But in Python, we do have something different and interesting too, that is known as while else and for else. We can use else with for loop and else with while loop. Then we do have transport statements. Break and continue must be familiar. If you're familiar with any other programming language, knows the basics. There are keywords. Break and continue. We do have break and continue keyword in Python too. And we do have a statement known as pass. When your requirement is don't do anything, let's say for example, you are inside a loop and then checking certain conditions, right? And then if the condition is, let's say, company name equals to Amazon, don't do anything for the time being. When you are telling like, no, don't do anything for the time being, don't use print function. Like, no, print is print function, you are calling like a print function. But whenever you want to actually tell the program like pass, the keyword is just pass. Okay, so pass is for passing the control to the next step. So these are the control flow statements. The first one is conditional statement. In the conditional statement, we have basic if, basic if else, nested if else, if if else. Okay. So now the first one, basic if. What is the syntax of basic if? Syntax of basic if. Okay. So syntax of basic if, it is like if condition or conditions, condition or conditions, then you must specify a colon here. Guys, remember, if condition or conditions, let us take like one condition here. If condition, then colon. Here you can specify the statements. You should remember, this is the interesting fact in Python. You should follow the indentation. The indentation could be 2 spaces, 4 spaces, or a single tab, or 2 tabs. Whatever you want to give, it is going to work. But the coding standard is like, give 2 spaces or 4 spaces. I prefer to use like 4 spaces. So it is up to you guys. If you want to actually use 2 spaces, you can actually specify 2 spaces. We'll try with like multiple spaces and see whether it is working or not working. Now if condition, I'm just giving like 4 spaces here, 4 spaces here, and after giving 4 spaces, I can specify like statement or statements. It could be anything. So this is how it is going to look like. Now when I'm talking about like the condition, the condition could be the condition. What kind of condition we can have? We can have a membership. We can do that membership comparison. We can do like identification comparison. We can have numeric. We can basically have anything like string comparison. We can have any function also here. But the catch is it should return either true or false. When I'm talking about like a true or false, only then we can actually go ahead with the execution. Like when the if block is going to execute, when the condition is true, the if block is actually going to execute. If the condition is false, then the if block is not going to be executed. Let us write a small program. Let us write a small program. I've just given like num1 equals to int of, I'm just casting it, int of input of enter a number. If you feel like, okay, this looks complex, then to simplify it, what we can do, just give like num1 equals to input of enter a number, and the type will be by default string. Then you can give, let's say, same number we can also use, like same variable you can use, but here I'm just using like a temporary number equals to int of num1, then num1 equals to tnum. This is simplified version. But instead of doing all these things real time, if you're going to write this, it is not going to look good, because this is not the coding standard. Okay, this is not the best practice. So what we need to do is we can directly take the input and cast it. So this is the input function which is going to return as a string. Then we can directly cast it to input int type. Now I'm just going to take number2. Again, this is also int type. If I'm giving if number1 greater than number2, for spaces, you can give print num1 is greater than num2. This is my small program. Now let us do one thing. Let us go ahead, directly write it in the PyCharm editor. Basic if. Look at here. So in the basic if, what I'm actually using here is, I'm using num1 equals to num2 greater than num2. Here I've just given, and here you can see the program is num1, num2, then the same thing, whatever I've explained, I've just copy pasted it here. The moment I'm executing it, you just look at here. It is asking, give the number 1. I've just given like 100. Give the number 2. I've just given 99. It is saying 100 is greater than 99. If I'm running the same program again, Control Shift of 10 to execute the program, and I'm just giving like 100, 101. Here the output is nothing, because what is your control flow? The control flow is, if this condition is true, then print number1 is greater than number2. In this case, 100 is not greater than 101, so it is not going to work. Then I've told you another thing, like I've just given like 4 spaces. If you are using IDE, let's say for example, here I have written in Notepad and then explicitly specified the spaces. But if you are actually using IDE, just hit enter. It is actually going to the next line. If I'm hitting here like print success, another statement like print success, here it is going to print number1 greater than number2, then success. Let's say I want to have another statement here, print hello world. Okay, so 3 statements. Just look at the spacing here. Look at the spacing here. This is PyCharm is actually taking default 4 spaces. To realize it, I can specify 1, 2, 3, and 4 spaces. Now print again successful. Okay, so this is how we can actually run the program. Control Shift of 10 to execute the program. Here I'm just giving 102 greater than 12. Here it is printing 102 is greater than 12, success, hello world, and successful. You can ask me, is it mandatory that we need to give 4 spaces? The answer is no. We should not give 4 spaces. It again depends, but PyCharm text like 4 spaces, we can actually configure it as well. I'm just giving like now, let's say 1 space. Let us see whether in 1 space it is actually going to work or not. Let us give 1 space and see whether it is going to work. Even if we're giving like 1 space, it is actually definitely going to work. 1 space. If you're not giving any space, you're saying like now, I don't want to give any space. Let us run the program and experience error. What it is saying? The indentation error expected an indented block after if statement line number 4. Whenever you are actually getting this error, guys, if you are unable to remember the complete error message, the key from here is indentation. If your error message says indentation issue, that means you have not specified space. Let's say for example, if I'm giving like 2 spaces, it should also going to work. 2 spaces. It is also going to work. 1 space it was working, no space there was error. Now 2 spaces we have given. I mean 2 spaces. Here you can see it is also working. Now you feel like okay, I don't actually give space. I want to use like 2 tabs. Give 2 tabs like this. 2 tabs, you can actually execute the program. It is also going to work. Let's say I'm just giving 32 followed by 12. It is actually going to work. So the indentation, my recommendation will be give 2 spaces or 4 spaces. If you are using any IDE, go ahead with the defaults so that you should not explicitly specify space, and that is a tedious job. So use IDE and that is actually going to be helpful. Let's say for example, if I'm actually going to indent it using the default, I'll just go here, hit enter, and all these things I can actually indent it as per the requirement. Okay, so this is a tabbed space. Okay, the Python text tabbed space. So that's all about like the basic if. Now the basic if else, what is the syntax? The basic if else syntax is this is the syntax of basic if. If I want to write the syntax for basic if else, what I can do here is basic if else, here condition, then statements, and the indentation should be same, then I can specify else, then statement over here. This is how it is actually going to work. Now, I'm not going to disturb this program. What I'm going to do is, I'm just going to write one more program on basic if else. Basic if else. In the basic if else, I'm just going to write else print number 1, number 2 is greater than, I'm just missing fixed string, and we should quote it number 1. This is a very small program, guys. This is a very small program, just comparing two numbers. Okay, I'm just going to tell you there are logical errors in this program, and we'll experience what is that. While ago I mentioned syntax error. In the previous program, when the indentation was not given, like we are not using any indentation, we got that indentation error. That is something wrong with the syntax. In this program, there is nothing wrong with the syntax. Control Shift F10, if I do, here I'm just giving like nothing and what is the error you are actually getting here. So this is known as runtime error. There is nothing wrong, something wrong with your value. This is known as runtime error. So now Control Shift F10 to run the program again. I'm just giving 102, then 11. The result is 102 is greater than 11. And if I give like 102, then 10023, it is going to print 10023 is greater than 102. It is also working fine. Now the logical error will be coming here. Something wrong with logic. 10 is 10. Here it is saying 10 is greater than 10. 10 is 10. Here it is saying 10 is greater than 10. This is something wrong with your logic. If I print 10 greater than 10, it is actually going to print a message saying like it is false. Let's say for example, if I'm having a statement something like this, print 10 greater than 10, it is actually going to print false. It is going to, in the previous session, I have clearly explained it. Like now, whenever you are actually using this kind of operation, then it is actually going to print either true or false. Now, when both the values are actually 10 here, the statement is going to be executed. I mean, so the condition will be going to be executed. Then if it is false, returning false, then the statements in the else block is actually going to be executed. Now what's happening here? 10 greater than 10, else block is actually blindly getting executed. Now how to correct this? To correct this program, the same program, I'm just like taking it, copy pasting and then putting it in another file. Let's say basic if else one Python file. You should select the program file type is Python file. Now look at here. We need to fix it. Now here I'm going to execute another block. If num1 equals to num2 double equals to known as comparison operator. Now print both the numbers are same. Both the numbers are same. Okay, we are done. But again, there is a logical error. What is the logical error? Number 1 is 10, number 2 is 10. If you're passing 10 and 10, it is going to check, okay, number 1 and number 2 both are same. It is going to execute, both the numbers are same. How do we control the flow? How do I tell the program that do not proceed further because the numbers are same? In this case, if you are not specifying anything, then what is going to happen? It is going to print both the numbers are same. Again, number 2 is greater than number 1. Let's say I'm just like to make it more meaningful, number 1 is less than, I'm just giving so that you can actually understand, okay, number 1 is less than number 2. Okay, so if you get less than, else block statement is going to be executed. If the numbers are actually different, like number 1 is greater than number 2, then in this case the statement in the if block is going to be executed. If numbers are same, we are going to get the output as both the numbers are same, followed by number 1 is less than number 2. It is going to print 10 is less than 10. Now if I'm running this program with 10 and 10, if I'm running the program with 10 and 10, here you can see both the numbers are same, 10 is less than 10, which is not the expected output. This is also a logical error. So logical error, it will take a lot of your time to identify the logical errors. Think about, this is a 12-line code, but in real time you may be dealing with like 500 lines code or like thousands of lines of code, or you can see like a complete Python project altogether and having a lot of dependencies between the packages and modules. So in that case, it will take a lot of your time identifying where is the problem? So logic building is the key. The more programs you are going to write, you will be like now becoming very strong in logic. Now in this case, let me correct it. Like, how do I tell the program that there is an error and you should not proceed further? Okay, we can actually call a function exit. Okay, exit followed by nothing. Stuff here if numbers are same. Like, just stop here if numbers are same. If I'm running this program, Control Shift F10, here you see, I can get the number. Let's say I'm just giving like 10, 10. In this case, it's saying both the numbers are same. So initially, we were not having the else block. Then we have like started writing the else block. Then we got the error message. Then we came up with this logic. Then again there was logical error, and we have actually included exit, like to stop the execution if the numbers are same. In this program, still we are having errors. This is just comparing two numbers. Very small program. I'm just telling all edge cases where the program is going to fail. Now what I'm going to do here is, I'm just going to execute Control Shift F10 here and look at here. Enter a number, I'm just giving A, it is failing. It is saying invalid literal A because I cannot understand A. Why? While ago I have just explained, if the input is string to int, string to int is not possible. Int to string is possible. String to int is not possible. So in this case, what's happening, when we are actually passing A, it is failing with this error. So this is actually abnormal termination because there's something wrong with our value. That is one thing. Then the second thing, if I'm giving like Control Shift F10 here, just giving nothing, it is also going to fail. When you are actually giving non-numeric values, it is going to fail. Whenever you are giving space or null, the program is going to fail. Now, whenever you are actually going to give, let's say for example, I have given the program like 3.25, 3.25. What it is saying here is enter a number 3.25, and it is saying invalid literal for int, that is like 10 base 3.25 is cannot actually convert. So now these are the edge cases. As you go, like there will be like n number of edge cases where the program can fail. Logic building is the key. Let us proceed further. We'll be writing like n number of programs to get familiar with this kind of errors and how to handle it. What are the best practices? How to control the input? How to control like the input is not null and all these things. We are going to learn about it. So don't worry. For the time being, just focus on the syntaxes, like whatever I'm actually following. Just give me a second. We are familiar with basic if else, and so far we have done like numeric comparisons. Let me tell you how to deal with string comparisons. How to deal with string comparison. The same program will just go ahead extend it or change it little bit to do a string comparison. The input function is by default going to return a string type object. So now string comparison strcmp Python file. There you go. Here I'm just going to change the value company1 input company. We should not actually cast it to int. I can say enter company1, enter company2. Just the input is sufficient. We don't need actually to convert like int to string to int conversion is not required. And we can actually use the variable as company, meaning variable is company 2. Now company 1 and company 2. Now here I'm just comparing. If company 1 equals to company 2, we can say names are same. Names are same. If it is not same, what we can do, we can definitely write here else print company names are different. Okay, so now look at here. So in this case, what we are actually doing here is company one variable, and we are taking the value from the user in runtime. Then company 2, another variable, we are also taking it from the user in the runtime. Then comparing is the comparison operator. The comparison operator is same for all the data types. Whether input is number, whether input is string, we can compare two strings, we can compare two numbers, we can compare two floating point numbers, we can compare two lists, and all these things. Everything is actually possible, but there are actually various types of implementation, how to compare it. In those cases, what you can do is you can use a comparison operator. Now, I'm running the program, and here I'm just giving the input as Amazon and Amazon. Here it is saying lamp names are same. If I'm giving Walmart, then HCL, in this case it should say like the names are different. If I'm giving null and null, it is saying names are same. This is one of the error case over here, right? Logical error. Now here if I'm giving 1, 2, 3, 3 to 4, in this case also, what is going to happen, because 1, 2, 3 is not number, it is string, because input is going to return string type. In this case, it is going to tell us like company names are different. So company name can be alphanumerics, but company name like 24/7 or any other company name, we can actually specify company name can contain like can contain numbers too. But whenever the company names are same but different case, company names are same but different case. Let's say for example, I'm just giving like TCS. It is saying company names are different. Why? Because the takeaway from here is, I'm just noting it down here for your reference, string comparisons are case sensitive. We can convert the case and compare as well. We can convert it to either lowercase and uppercase and convert it, and that we are going to learn in the string functions. We are going to learn about upper and lower function or lower method in string section. Okay, so this is how the string comparison is actually going to work. Now, I'm just going to tell you one more program. See here, like new Python file, then I can give string comparison to, that's it. Here I'm just giving company, just company, that's it. Here I'm just giving if not company, sorry, if company 1 actually. company1 print null, else print there is an error in this line colon, then I can say company1. It is an interesting one, just see it here. Control Shift of 10. If I'm giving like company1 is null, it is saying like the printing null. If I'm giving like in a company name, I'm just giving like multiple spaces. Now here you can see it is actually taking spaces. But whenever you are just hitting enter, like if the value is null, if it is like giving the value is null, if the input is null, bracketed, not multiple spaces, then print null. Okay, input is just enter key, that's it. In those cases, you can actually get the output as null. Otherwise, you're going to get the company name. Control Shift of 10. If I'm actually going to execute this program and giving like Walmart, here you can see Walmart. But if I'm giving like if I'm giving like nothing, it is saying null. Real-time use cases, I'm just going to tell you. Let us write another program assigning default values. Assigning default values to a variable. str comparison 3 Python file. Here we go. Here I can say if company name, if the value is null, if the value is null, assign default value as home. Okay, so now I'm just specifying here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to company1, I'm just giving it here like home. Now print welcome then company1. Okay, so now here it is, what it is going to do. First we are going to take the input from the user, then we are actually checking whether the input is null. If the input is null, set the value to home, then print the statement saying welcome company1. If the input is Walmart, it is going to print welcome Walmart. If the input is actually nothing, just enter key, it is actually going to print as home. Now Control Shift of 10 to execute the program in PyCharm, then I'm just giving nothing, it is saying welcome home. Now if I'm running the program and giving the input as Walmart, here you can see welcome Walmart. Okay, so this is how it is going to work. There are various use cases. There are various use cases of string comparison. These are the very basics of string comparison. We can compare strings. So far you are familiar with the basic if else, numeric comparison, string comparison. We can also use membership operators in the comparison as well, and in this case we are actually using a logical operator. Okay, in the condition section we are using a logical operator. Initially we have used two numbers and we are using like not equals to, not equals to, then we have used two strings. Here I am using like one logical operator that is not and followed by a string over here. Now I'm just going to use another type of operator over, condition over here, that is nothing but like membership operator. For example, let us say like how to write a membership operator over here. Okay, now new Python file, just give if membership let's say my name, I'm just going to print here Subhasis Samandre, And if I'm printing here like if s in if s in name, print s is present in name, else print s is not present in name. In this case, the name is contained like in my name. I do have like small s and capital S. It is case sensitive. The membership actually in, not in, are actually case in name. It has to be quoted because it is a character we are actually searching for. Okay. And now look at here. Control Shift F10. Here it is saying S is present in Subhash's Samudra. If you are not putting it, then here S will become a variable. S is actually going to be a variable. Now, what we are actually going to get an error message? The identification operator or like the identifier is actually missing. Look at here. So what it is saying? The identifier, like name error, S is not defined. The identifier is not defined. So in this case, S is a character, not a variable. Okay, S is a character, not a variable. In this case, you can actually see the membership operator. Let's say if I'm giving another example here, let's say something similar to this. If X not in name, we can say like X is not present in name, or we can say here X is present in name. I've used in the previous if S in, here X not in. Here I'm just giving like S is present in Subhash's, X is not present in Subhash's Samantha. Let's say in the previous session, I have actually told you a pattern search, right? Pattern match program. Now let us do a pattern match program. Ideally, we'll be actually dealing like reading the content from a file, do a pattern match, real-time implementation search. Let's say you are looking up some configuration file, checking if the database parameters are actually defined or not defined, or you are actually checking like certain values, or let's say customer ID is present in the file or not, or you are actually checking for like some matching string. You can actually use the membership operators. Okay, now I'm just giving another example like if membership example 2. Let us try this program, and here I'm just giving, let's say, log message. My log message is order 1 2 3 4 successfully processed. Okay, now here I'm just searching like if success is present in log message. Again, it is case sensitive. We can use like string functions at a later point of time, but for now, remember it is possible to search in any case. If success is present in log message, then we can say order successfully processed. Okay, else we can say here order failed. Now look at here, Control Shift F10. Here you can see it is saying order successfully processed. Now I have another log message. Let's say I have another log message here. which says order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, error stepped. Now here you can see Control Shift. We can actually do, like now this is a reassignment, we can actually use this. Here you can see order successfully processed, here order failed. So these are the real-time use cases of membership operator in if. Membership operator in if. So we'll proceed further like tomorrow on various topics. So far let us conclude it like now whatever things we are actually familiar with. So you started with basic if else. We are done with numeric comparison or condition. We are done with string comparison or condition. Then we are done with logical condition, and then we are done with membership condition. Okay. In the upcoming session, I'm going to tell you like now how to deal with identification operators. Like now we can actually use identification operator in the if, and then followed by I'll be covering the nested if else, if else. That's all about like now what we are actually going to learn